I'm here in Chicago for Christmas. I grew up outside Chicago in a little farm town, and I spent about 4 years downtown here before I moved to Nashville. I've been in Nashville 5 years now. And, this was just like a pivotal step for me. It was kind of this coming back to my roots type of situation where, I'd been kind of traveling all over the country and, I was just kind of hitting a wall with so many things in my life. And it was coming from this place. I was like running from things, right? I really like leaned in travel and doing things differently. And I lived out of a suitcase for a few years where I would just kind of jump from place to place. And it was just, it was really about coming back and just getting clear on what's true for me and connecting back to my roots. And, so I started Evolved Athlete when I was here in Chicago. That was like the first iteration of my business. And so got off to a good run with that. So the first year and a half, things were going really well, but it was still built on a lot of trying to prove myself, not feeling good enough. A lot of the themes and ideas that like my baseball career was built on. So it just kind of really came to a head here where, I was just like led to really face myself. And so this kind of this allowing things to fall away, rather than continuing to fight and push forward, it was just about being still and just letting things fall away. And then also, it's like I actually, I tore down Evolved Athlete the first time. Like I was tired of working with baseball players and I wanted to discover this other aspect. And so I was in this big transition of trying to figure out what was next for me. And so that included, I went back and I worked with my dad for a while. That was a big thing I was like running from was like, I don't want to be in construction. I don't want to paint. And that was like a big motivator for me, but it was just like, I actually needed to rediscover myself in that process. So I simplified the business. I was doing limited work, but then I'd work a couple days a week with my dad. I'd take the train to the suburbs and go spend some time with him. And this was really to just really find peace and really heal our relationship. So much of my drives and motivations were from not feeling good enough and trying to prove my dad wrong and things of that nature, which is, those are, I think, common like young man's motivations. And it was just kind of this interesting time period where I started to feel like calm and at ease with it. I knew I wasn't like destined to paint, but it was more of like this shifting my relationship with it rather than like pushing against it. It was like it was using it as a learning experience because my dad taught me so many like valuable principles. He's like a perfectionist and everything. I had to look great and a lot of hard work and showing up consistently and taking things to their completion and all these ideas were really like important pieces I needed. And so it's really here I stopped fighting. I started to just get really still and I started to just kind of question everything, my motivations. This is where it was about 5, 6 days a week. I would meditate about 6 hours a day. It was just, I'm just kind of pulled at a thread of my past and it just kept unwinding. So I would just sit with myself and I would just study all these different situations in my life and really let them unwind. And it just like, I often talk about like ego death or dark night of the soul. And it was just like that type of stuff like was going on all the time where everything I thought I was like, I couldn't really grasp that anymore. It just started to fall away. It was through just questioning my motivations, trying to really get clear on who I am and what it is I actually want to build. The first version of my business was just carryover from what I was already doing. I didn't want to continue to move forward until I got things to a clean place. I wanted to build from the heart and not build from the pain. And this is really where that happened. I just, reflected on my roots, just all the different dynamics with my brothers, my parents, like the high school relationships. I don't really talk to anybody from high school anymore. This is where I grew up, but I outgrew the small town and never wanted to look back. But it was like letting even go the fighting the resistance of where I was coming from, right? It's like it was just coming to peace with it, where I just went back to spend time in all these places and just really rediscover my relationship to that And really that's healing work. If something's left in the painful place, I'm carrying that over to the next thing. It was really just getting clear on myself and trying to figure out who I am and what are not be driven by the pain to just create a big version of my business, but what's the version that suits me? Where can I make the biggest impact? Where can I do it from a clean place? I was getting rid of a lot of the ego stuff, the need to make massive amounts of money, like all that stuff. Like I want to do those things, but that's not like the driving factor. It's more just this natural byproduct of just being very good at what I do. Chicago's a special place. I come visit here a few times a year and just reconnect with it. And I love the big city. I love the culture here, and it's just it's kind of one of those places where it just connects me back to myself, and so it holds that special place because it was where I really got serious about rebuilding myself from the ground up. It's such an intense process, but this is where I really like found a lot of peace with myself, and so I'm forever grateful for that. And so that's why I like to guide people too. Is like, hey, like stop running. Let's face it. Let's just sit with it because there's so many gifts in that. You start to adopt this like more calm presence where you stop rushing from one thing to the next or trying to build so fast that you get in over your head. It's more of you start to adopt this calm pace where you're really just trusting your actions, and you feel pretty good about yourself no matter what, because you're no longer operating from that deficit. Okay. And that deficit drives so much in us. I often remember times when I was going through this phase where, I would just feel this like massive like emptiness inside, this huge void, and I would want to run from that, but I decided to just like sit with it for massive amounts of time. When you come back to yourself, you just realize that I just created all these stories in my head about all these situations that may or may not have been true, but ultimately like they don't matter anymore, right? Like so much of our mindset is built on the past, and I keep reliving these things over and over again, but they only have that power if I give it to them. That's why we got to clean it up. That's why we got to look at these things differently, is so that you can really live like this true version of you, this authentic version that's no longer fighting against things, but just really aligning with what you want. It's surrendering the battles, it's surrendering the ego, and just getting to this place of this continuous self-discovery, and just always reaching for what excites you, connecting back to being playful and taking things less serious, and just getting to that place of, operating out of the heart. It's not all that serious, even though we think it is. And we really just want that clean energy, because that's where all the best things are born. Because I started to recognize a lot of the traps of like the things I was building. I could look like 10 years down the road. I could see how it like would be a prison for me. It was like taking that conscious thought of, okay, this isn't actually what I want. I can continue down this road, but I like see where it leads. I think that's a useful practice, is to just really take a look at that. Just imagine, if you continue on this road, what does that look like? And if you don't like what it looks like, right now is where you have the power to change that. So it's just getting really clear on that, of like, what adjustments need to be made? What do I need to let go of? It's always letting go of our pain. It's always about finding forgiveness. It's always about finding peace. And that's what allows us to free up the energy to move forward in a clean way. And then that doesn't have all the stress attached to it. So, super, super grateful to be back here. And so just really excited to see how this relationship with the city continues to evolve for me. I'm always back here, so I never know what's going to happen next. So I just wanted to share some of that with you.